Good morning, SCDA. This is Jason Corkin, volunteer for the charity. We're looking at questioning local employers regarding their interview procedures and sort of looking at the best people they tend to find for on this particular aspect is the pub trade. And I'm here with Sam, who is the landlord of not only the Wheel Inn in Burwash Wheel, but also the White Hart in Wadhurst, under the auspices of the Village Pub Company. So I'd like to thank Sam for agreeing to do this video interview. And if you could just tell us, Sam, about your pub group and your sort of role within it, please.
We've got two pubs which sit under our main company. Like Jay said, the Wheel Inn and the White Hart. My job is I do a bit of everything really. I jump in where I'm needed. As the owner, I've got two really strong teams who are good at what they do. But I pick up the pieces where it needs to be. My biggest role at the moment is employing staff. After coronavirus, we've got a lot busier, especially the Out to Help Out scheme. So we're doing a lot of recruitment at the moment. So I spend a lot of time talking to different people, doing interviews and bits and pieces, putting out job adverts, trying to find the right people, because it's all about finding the right people for your team in pubs, especially.
Sure. And as you mentioned earlier, you're the landlord with your wife, so you probably feel like sometimes everything comes back to you, does it? Questions and
yeah, no,
you're like the managing director of a firm.
Yeah, ultimately we're responsible for everything that goes on. So if we have issues in the pub, whether it's a complaint about fish and chips or whether it's something bigger or a member of staff not being happy, it will come back to us and we have to deal with it in a way that's appropriate.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. And as we were on the subject of sort of recruiting and everything, because obviously you have the final decision. What did you find currently now in this COVID, which we probably it's not going to end soon? What are your challenges in recruiting for the pub trade at the moment?
One of the biggest challenges is the furlough scheme, because a lot of people have gone on it and decided that they're much happier being on the furlough scheme than actually working, because they're sitting there at home and earning 80% of their wage, not spending as much money as they were before because they're at home, and they actually don't want to come back to work anymore. We have had applicants who have put in job applications and then told me that they don't want to come to work because they're earning more money doing this or whatever else. And it's also finding people that take hospitality as a serious industry, because probably in the UK we're probably one of the only countries in Europe who don't take hospitality seriously. It's a proper job, and a lot of people see it as we do get a lot of younger people coming in to do the job, see it as something you do when you're younger, then you go to uni and then you get a proper job. Whereas it's, especially at the moment with the Out to Help Out, it's really intense and you have to be good at it, otherwise it falls short very quickly.
That's right. And so when you are recruiting, where do you advertise for?
We use a number of different. Facebook is one of the most effective at the moment, I find, because a lot of people are on there, and we've had a lot of applicants through there. The most recent chef I employed for here, who's starting next week, he messaged me on Facebook because he saw an ad on Facebook. We also use Indeed, and we use a catering one called The Caterer for our advertising. But it's difficult because you get a lot of the CVs don't tell you a lot, and that's what you get from these things. So you need to delve a bit deeper and find out what they've actually done before.
Sure. And on that subject, so do you prefer? You don't mind obviously a direct approach if they came in the pub, or do you, as you say, obviously your email inbox can get quite chocker with CVs from just. The
problem with CVs, it's really difficult to judge a character by a CV. When my view is that it's what you want in the pub trade, especially, or the hospitality industry, is people that engage. And what I look for is if someone comes into the pub and gives me a CV, I can probably tell within 30 seconds whether they're going to be right for the job or not.
Okay.
But with a CV you can't, so it's a longer process with a CV. So you get a CV and you call them, and you go through the process. Some people don't bother showing up for interviews, but yeah. So for us, it's always a good thing for people to come in directly, because we can get to meet them, and I can have an idea straight away of how they are.
Sure.
A CV is a useful tool to a certain extent to see what they've done, but then again, it's not what they've written isn't always necessarily what they've actually done.
So if a CV sort of piqued your interest, you'd always ring them first to set up an interview and have a chat.
Yeah,
gauge them.
I tend to. My process is kind of I see let's say we go down the CV channel online applications. We get a CV, and then have a phone call with them, sort of 5 minutes or so, just find out a bit more about them, find out kind of what their expectations are in terms of salary. Because there's no point me inviting them in if they want to be paid twice what we can pay, or they've got unrealistic expectations about what happens here.
Okay.
So we kind of I find out the basic information, and if that sounds good, then we'll invite them in for an interview.
Right.
You know, and generally it's a trial shift as well here because it's a very hands-on job. An interview is good because you get a feeling for what the person is like and how well they can engage you. But the trial shift is the most important thing because you need to see how they are, not just with you, because they're going to try and impress you in an interview, but with the customers as well and on the floor.
That's a very good point. And on the subject of the interview, as you said, sometimes when people have come in for interview, they may not have met you personally, only spoken to you on the phone. What do you still look for if they come through the door? Are you looking for somebody who's sort of showing at least a modicum of looking smart, neat appearance?
Yeah, I think what we look for, I'd say, is that kind of they need to have a little bit of respect for what they're coming into. If they get, what tends to happen is I'll be here and I'll be kind of watching what's going on. If I've got an interview, but one of the girls was sitting down on the table, like Kaylee or Rosie, I'll ask them for a drink and the rest of it, and I'll kind of ask them, what were they, how were they, blah blah blah. I will, you initially you see someone and you do. There's a bit of judgment on how they've come in, how they present themselves, how they've introduced themselves, and it's important that they make that good first impression, because if they can't make a good first impression on me in an interview, are they going to do it when they go over to a table, or when they see a chef coming out the kitchen and he looks a bit scruffy, it doesn't look so good.
Excellent, thank you. And as you mentioned earlier about the sort of customer service and being polite, what other skills, qualities would you look for in a potential employee?
The thing I really look for, and I keep saying, is people that can engage. For us, like I said, if they can't capture my attention in the first minute of an interview, they're never going to get someone's attention at the table. So for me, they have to be able to engage, they have to be nice, and the rest of the skill set we can train into them. For a chef, it's slightly different. I expect them to come in and they might cook me a dish, so 3 dishes. So I'd expect that to show. I'm not expecting the finished article all the time, because we're a local pub and we can't compete with the big wages in somewhere like Tunbridge Wells or London. So we will take people maybe lower down the ladder who we can give the skills to. So as long as they've got a basic understanding and the basic skills are there, it's all about how they are. And we will only want to employ people who are going to be part of the team, because what we are here is, whether we have 5 members of staff or 20 members of staff, everyone's a team. And that's so important. They understand that one bad apple will completely rock that.
Yes.
And so what we tend to do is, if we do employ someone who make a bad judgment, then we don't let it affect the team.
And on that subject, would you say that you would look for more experience, or would you say not really qualifications, if you see that they're, as you said, the raw material that you could train them up?
I don't really look for qualifications as such. I'm more interested in, the personality of the person. And the thing about hospitality, it's a very small industry as well, in terms of if you've worked in this area, I'll probably know who you've worked with. So it's very easy to find out what their kind of attitude's like, and that's what's important. It's coming in, if they do a trial shift, being proactive. They might not know everything and they might not be able to even pour a pint, they might not be able to do this, but if they're being proactive and trying to help, that's what we're after.
Excellent.
People that don't just stand there and twiddle their thumbs or put their hands in their pockets or leaning against the bar. That's not what I want to see. We want to see people who get stuck in, and even if they do struggle, I'd rather they struggle and got stuck in.
That's very interesting. And then, sort of last couple of questions. Obviously, as you're running 2 pubs, presumably when you look for staff that are proactive. And what sort of key attitudes for employees are essential to help run your business? What would you say?
You need people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, because especially in this industry, it's not always the easiest. We get difficult customers. People who can deal with the odd person who gets a bit drunk and misbehaves themselves. You need to have quite a strong personality to do well, and you need to be able to deal with adverse situations, because there's not always managers on site. Last week I had at White Hart someone who had a few too many drinks and I was having to go at the staff, but they dealt with it really well, because it's finding that it's a bit of character. So they go, right, we can deal with this, and we give them the tools to do it, and we make sure they know that we protect them as well. But for us, we need people who've got, you know, a bit of backbone as well. You can't. This isn't a job where you can come in and be really quiet and stuff. And we're happy. We do take people on who are quiet, and we just try and get them out their shells. And if they don't, then it's not going to work out for them. We need people, because you don't want to. The last thing you want is when you come into a pub or a restaurant to come in and then kind of you not being able to hear them, or they're not, like I say, not engage you. You know, and there needs to be an element of common sense as well, because it is a very practical job, and there's half of the job you can work out yourself, and there's the rest of it which is skill based. But if you've got a bit of common sense, then it goes a long way, and it's amazing how many people kind of lack that.
Yes, and finally, obviously with an employee that you'd interviewed, you'd taken on, if he showed, or he or she showed good promise, would you look to, if they wanted to help them further their career in hospitality, to end up possibly running, you know, if you did decide to go for any other pubs, to be their own sort of manager of a pub, with staff under them, so there would be that opportunity.
Yeah, well, we're proactive in making sure there's incentives for all the staff. So we're introducing next month a scheme which means that every casual member of staff can earn up to £10 an hour based on training. So they complete their training, they get pushed up to £9 an hour. Once their manager signs them off, they then go up to £10 an hour. Because what we want to do is keep the best people with us. Excellent. And it's the same with our chefs. They're all our chefs are on bonuses. It's all about, we want to keep. If we find good people, then we find a way to keep them. So for example, what we did, Kaylee, who was my manager at the White Hart, she now runs both sites for me. So it's, we try, and then obviously when Rosie came back after she went away, she was then promoted to front of house manager here, and they worked together. And then my head chef at the White Hart was a sous chef there. He's now head chef.
So there's definite career progression.
Yeah, I think that's important, because one thing I found when I was coming through the industry was there wasn't enough. You get to a point, and then that was it.
Yes.
And all these there's a lot of big companies out there who are more than happy to take the mick out of people, really.
Yes.
Make them work as hard as they can. Whereas when I was coming through the ranks, I never got a bonus, I never got anything like that. It's not the most important thing in the world, but a little bit of recognition here and there makes a massive difference to how long your staff stay.
Great, well that's very kind. Thank you indeed, Sam, for that candid interview, and I hope when it goes on, people can see, and you may get someone who applies through the video or something.
Yeah, that's great.
So I want to thank you for your time, and we're looking forward to coming out tonight to have a meal.
Lovely. Thanks, Chris.